Hey, this is Justin with DayTradeTheMarkets.com. It is Thursday, July 11th. The bull market in the indexes is chugging along here. It's been a little while. I had a little bit of a vacation last week, so it's been a while since I've done a video, but I thought I would kind of look at the ES or the E-mini S&P today and talk about it in terms of number one, using a little bit of bigger picture context and the overnight session to help you make better decisions while you're trading. And then two, talk about a really nice, what we call confluence type of a setup that occurred later in the day. So with that as a background, let's review what we were looking at heading into the day. If I make this chart a little bit smaller and show a little bit more, you can see we had a huge gap where we closed yesterday. And heading into the day, we like to look at our bigger picture context and some bigger picture key levels. And so heading into the day, our bigger picture bias was up. And we were looking at this, as we closed yesterday, we were looking at the 48 areas potential resistance, and then, another target way up here around 67. Now, as it turns out, we had this huge gap in the overnight session, okay? And so this is a very big gap, bigger than normal. And so this is one of those days where it certainly would behoove you to look at what happened a little more closely in the overnight. And so what I've got here is an overnight chart. So this is, Wednesday night heading into Thursday morning. And right at the close, of Wednesday's regular trading session, we had a pretty good rally. Bernanke was speaking, and we had a pretty good rally. And then, we got all the way up in the overnight session, all the way up to that 67 level that we were monitoring for, a next potential target, and started to see a little selling and had some consolidation. But so we had actually a pretty tradable overnight session if you were so inclined, in terms of, seeing that bulls were pretty well in control, having a green filter, testing into green zones and having nice setups and so forth. But beyond that, just, using this structure in the overnight and kind of applying it to the regular trading hours, because we didn't have much to work with early in the day. So what do I mean by that? For example, if I draw this support zone here from basically, let me just draw it in there, and I'll also draw another one right in here. And what I can do is I can actually just copy that and then take it over to my 1 minute, paste that in, and then I can go back to my overnight chart and copy this zone as well. Paste that in there. And so you can see that early in the day, because we were kind of in a zone we haven't tested in a couple of months, or in a price level we were higher than we had tested in a couple months, we certainly can use those overnight areas. And this is something we talked about in our member session as well today. You can use those overnight areas as something to give you a little bit more guidance when there's nothing that happens in the regular trading hours. So hopefully that makes sense. So what you can see is, heading into the day, we'd like we'd like to be on the long side. There wasn't much to work with in terms of structure. We had a level 2 selling bar right into the first support and bounced a couple points again. Then we tried to sell off again right into that second support zone from the overnight, and that's where we started to rally again. Okay. Now you can see that early in the day we were at this 67 level, which is bigger picture. Let me make this chart a little bit easier to see. Okay, early in the day we tested the 67 and sold off to these overnight supports, which again, the only reason we would use the overnight is when you just don't have anything else to work with. Again, the market hadn't traded to this price level as it did overnight for a couple of months. So we're trying to look back and get as much information as possible from as recent an opportunity, or as recent a time as possible. So hopefully that makes sense, how we just took the overnight information and translated it to the regular trading session to try to give us a little bit of a roadmap, a little bit of a framework. So that was the first part of what I wanted to talk about in terms of the translating the overnight to the regular trading hours. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just really what we call a confluence, a perfect confluence type of a setup, and that occurred right in here toward the end of the day. Just as a little bit of review, if you're not familiar, we like to look at various pieces of evidence with our software. And there's other videos on site. You can look at kind of a piece-by-piece video if you want to get a little bit better idea of this. But we have these various, what we call pieces of the puzzle. And these are market data generated, real-time indicators or pieces of evidence, pieces of the puzzle. And just like if you were doing a puzzle on your kitchen table, the more of these pieces that you have that come together, the clearer your image, or the clearer you're going to be seeing the market in real time, and the better you're going to be able to make sense of the market in real time so you can make better trading decisions. So the idea of what we call a confluence trade, a confluence is the idea when a lot of things come together at once, is when you have a situation, or more evidence supporting a decision, your edge is greater. So when you can have, good information from the relative aggression bars, good information from the high velocity moves, lining up with the support resistance zone, etc., the filter, the bigger picture bias, which I talked about, which was already, which was pointing up, that we talk about each day in our member center. So that idea where you get several of these pieces to come together, you have a pretty high edge trade. It doesn't mean it's going to work out 100% of the time, but you have a very high opportunity, low risk type of a setup. So it took some patience today, but when we finally got some action here toward the end of the day, we had what we call this level 3 or extreme buying aggression bar, that dark blue bar that took out the high of the day, took out that 67 bigger picture level, and again, it's within our expectation bigger picture, which is up. So we're showing some real strong proof that sellers are very strong, very aggressive at that point. So that's telling us this thing wants to head higher. So then what do? You have a couple of options. One is you can just buy the breakout, okay? And certainly if you did that, it rallied a good 2.5 points before it started to sell off a little bit. The other thing you can do is wait for a pullback, because we know that 8 or 9 times out of 10, when you get a level 3 bar that starts a vertical move like this did, the low of that level 3 bar should act as good support. So in this situation, we've got the low of the level 3 bar, which again should be good support. We've got a support zone, this green zone, which is a real-time support zone that came onto the screen at this moment in time, right around 2:30 Eastern Time. We've got this bigger picture, potentially resistance area, which acted as resistance early in the day at 67. We're now above that, so it should act as support. So more is coming together. We've got our filter, which is telling us the market's strongly bullish at this moment. The order flow is supporting being strongly bullish. You wouldn't want to really fight that. So you've got a lot of things coming together right in this zone right in here. Okay, so we know that if you were to get long in this area, in this area right here, you have a minimal risk. You can get long around 67 or so, a little bit above that, 67.50, 67.25, somewhere in there, right around the green zone. Your stop would only need to be point and a half to be very very confident that you were actually wrong before you're out of a trade. So in other words, we would expect this support zone to hold. We would expect the bigger picture level of 67 to hold. We would expect the low of this level 3 extreme buying aggression bar to hold. The filter's telling us we expect this thing to move higher. So a lot of things are coming together or falling into place right there. And if you have the patience and the discipline to wait for those situations where a lot of things line up, you know that you have a high edge opportunity. Again, it doesn't mean that it's going to work out every single time, but you know that you have a low risk way to get into the market and still give yourself some pretty good opportunity. So hopefully that made sense. Like I said, the 2 points I wanted to make were just ways that you can use the overnight market. And as an aside, I mean, if you don't trade during the day and just want to trade in the overnight, not every overnight is great, but certainly we do get some good movement in the overnight, and we have a chart that you can use in the overnight that it's pretty tradable. The same logic would certainly apply. So that's also an option. But that was the point. And then also looking for, and getting back to that idea of confluence trades where things line up. Let's look at the overnight session just as an exercise. Okay, so we know, obviously, our bigger picture bias is up. We're looking at this 48 area heading into the day as potential resistance, which, we're above that. We start to see some high velocity moves here, which tell us that bulls are very much in control. The filter's telling us that as well. So everything's pointing to the fact that we don't want to be short. Okay, I'm just using the overnight as an exercise to talk about the logic behind it. So we know we don't want to be short. The next thing is, do we want to be long? Well, yeah, I would think you would want to be long. So then you say, okay, how do I get in a good spot that I don't have a lot of risk, that I can have a pretty good opportunity? Well, certainly when we get above this area here and this turns green, getting long in this area certainly is pretty low risk, pretty high opportunity. Okay, getting long in here and taking it up to that next expected target around 67 certainly made sense. We get another bit of consolidation in here. Now this is not as great because you don't have as much room to move up to this bigger picture target, but still getting long around 62.50, 63, you've got a green support zone, green filter, bigger picture bias is up. The structure early in the day is all bullish. Starting to see a little bit of bearish activity come in, that slowed the market down, but still, again, a pretty low risk opportunity if you're just trading in the overnight. That idea of confluence, where a lot of pieces of evidence are coming together. So hopefully that makes sense. And let us know if you have any questions about that. I'd be happy to explain it further. And otherwise, the next target up would be around the 80. It's the longer term high that we had in the overnight a couple months ago. So look out for that level tomorrow if this thing wants to head higher. And otherwise, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.